And we're back.
And we're back. I feel like we were just here. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we are not going to be doing our regular intro like we used to.
No, we can't do it anymore anyway. It's dead to me. But it is Thursday night, yes?
It is Thursday.
Okay, so it's Thursday night, Generational Change. We are earlier. We do normally go on at 9. But because we had an opportunity to stand in for Jordan today over in Status Quo, we decided that it would just be a lot more convenient to just go kind of straight into our show. But yeah, and if you're new here, welcome. We are, do we say our mission is transforming politics into service?
It is.
It is, but we deal with a lot of big issues. So, but if you're new here, please stick around. See, we have a really good interview scheduled. And please hit the like button. It's very helpful.
Yes. Please hit the like button, subscribe, click the bell, and share. And if you are so inclined, you can also go to our Patreon /generational change.
And if you're new, just stick around. We'll show you how it's so worth it here.
It's really
because we're small but mighty. We're a small but mighty channel.
Yes. It is a small but mighty channel, but it's a channel that has been growing, and we're going to do everything we can in our capacity to continue to do that. And that's why, as Lucy Bell points out, status quo is how we have utilized. Again, I know certain smaller channels lean on other channels in terms of their growth. Status quo is actually the only channel that I think we've ever leaned on for growth. I think that's the only.
Well, and I don't know that I would say leaned on as much as I would say a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's true.
And the thing is, it's like I have always been extremely proud and honored to be affiliated with Jordan because, like I said, I watched him. The fact that you were friends with him was just very fortuitous, but he's just extremely respectable and does this work with such integrity, and I really appreciate it. So, thank you, Wanker Tanker. All right,
you're getting a double for that one.
Peter, new rule. When one of us is talking, you cannot do that. We're going to have to save them so that it's not distracting. I don't like it when you do that. It distracts me.
I'm sorry.
You know what I'm saying? Because I want to be attentive to new people. But so, yeah, I would say that I wouldn't say we're leeching off of Jordan, but hey, spread the love. But we are big promoters of status quo. I've been a big supporter of status quo. I was an original member, from the olden days. And yeah, it's very important to support independent media and actual real journalism. Oh, nice. If you're going to put it up, at least read it for people who might be audio.
A pretty grim ghoul says, well, I guess I'm a new fan over here. Sick of all the apologists everywhere else. I'm not the doormat type. It's nice hearing others who feel the same. Fight.
Welcome. A pretty grim ghoul. By the way, if that is you, the hair's great. Love it. Love the blue hair.
James already getting us off to a great start. James Doss, thank you for becoming a member.
It's so helpful. I would like to think of us as if Jordan was sort of like the sun, that we were sort of like one of the little satellite planets orbiting around, just because we're more niche. Jordan's definitely real actual journalism.
He is.
You think I miss being able to hit? I've never raised hands to P. I would never do that.
Only if I'm portraying somebody.
Then I'm like, ew. But no, I don't ever raise hands to people. That's not my vibe. However, if somebody raises hands to me, and this is one of the things I actually really do want to talk to Matthew about. I know it's not the typical kind of stuff we talk to, but I really am curious about his thoughts in the whole Daniel Penny thing, because I have some thoughts that I would like to. So I'm not sure you have that on our to-do, right? Are we talking about that?
No, we're definitely going to talk about it. And one of our old school supporters of our channel, who has been awesome for a number of years, TM Martin. TM, you're going to have to fill us in. Elizabeth Warren really stepped in it with her Mangione comments.
Not surprising.
Liz Warren tends to step in it early and often, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. So yeah, let us.
But we're not surprised that she would step in it regarding him.
I'm sure it won't be hard to find whatever her, ignorant comments were. The problem is with people like that, you get to a certain place where you're so far removed from reality and they just cannot read the room because they're not in the same room.
No, they're not in the same room. And I do think that that's something that in many ways is why they seek these offices, because I think they like the idea of isolating themselves from the general public. The only time they get concerned is when the general public starts showing up on their doorstep. That's why it's always interesting for those of you who've been to our nation's capital. You know, you could be walking around the nicest neighborhoods in DC and you will see tent camps set up everywhere. You know, it really is in their face, but they just want to pretend like it's not happening. That's the reality.
Yeah. Well, they don't mind it as long as they don't have to see it. They just don't want to see it. It makes them, that's when they say things like, and use catchphrases like their safety, their concern for their safety. That's elitist speak for, we feel very uncomfortable. Yes. And I'm just, I don't care anymore. That's the thing. That's the beauty of it, is that, and this is one of the things I was just telling Jason, the best things about not being a candidate is I'll say whatever.
Count the ways.
Oh my God, let me count the ways that it's just, but you know, like I'll say whatever I feel like saying, but you know, I'm not apologizing for any of these people. People like, no.
At this point, you have to recognize that there are many instances, good friend of the show, Tony Clifton. I got to tell you, brother, I've walked around a number of, there's tents in Foggy Bottom. Like they're there. They may not be as plentiful as they are in other parts of the city, especially.
But they police those areas. The affluent areas have policing in such a way and do things in such a way so that they don't have to see that. That's why you see things like spikes and benches that are divided and all other sorts of just like mean
spikes on the benches is that's a new low.
It's spikes on window ledges and stuff and on surfaces where you don't want people. It's disgusting. Yeah. It's really the Hunger Games. Like, it's just disgusting. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's
Warren
just
said people can only take
down.
Senator Warren said people can only take so much, or words to that effect, while distancing herself from the homicide of the UnitedHealthcare CEO. Again, you cannot have it both ways. You have to address why is it that this particular person was chosen. You have to address the fact that because we don't have a universal healthcare system, that this particular person was singled out. Again,
and I think very strategically and very clearly as to why. You know, when you're talking about the CEO of the company, and again, people have pointed out that he's not the highest paid. That's true. He's not the highest paid. But United has the highest amount of denials in conjunction with the highest profits. That's why. That's why.
And United has the most profits. They do. They're number one.
Yes, and the most denials simultaneously. So it has nothing to do with what Mr. Thompson made. And by the way, whatever salary is for anybody, like seriously, you really think that's where the money is? Do we know his stock options? Do we know? Do we have any idea? No, we probably don't really know. So I'm just saying, it's like I'm just tired of that perspective. It's just it's incorrect. It's an incorrect perspective. It's incorrect.
That's true. It's not going to be civilized.
No, nope, because that was not caused by us.
And what I truly believe was Joaquin Phoenix's Oscar-winning scene. For those of you who have not seen Joker, the interview that is conducted on that show in a very Merv Griffin kind of way between himself and Bob De Niro, I would highly recommend that you watch it. The tension in that scene can be cut with a butter knife. That's how absolutely intense it was. And the relevance to the moment here, the meme that went around that we actually posted, which was, so you're telling me that you think it's funny that a corporate CEO was murdered? Is that what you're saying? And he's like, I do, Murray, and I'm tired of pretending that it isn't. And that's how a lot of people feel. You can't question people's feelings at this point when they realize that somebody finally decided to cross the Rubicon. And now there is no coming back, because that's why you get that phone call from that woman who, as we just pointed out on Status Coup, was probably told, oh, by the way, you know that coverage you think you're getting for that surgery? Hey, you're not getting it. No, too bad. Do the surgery yourself. And she's like, okay, Well, if that's how you're going to treat me, then I'm going to say, deny, delay, depose. You're next. And they treated that as a
deny, defend, depose.
Deny, defend, and depose. They treated that as a terroristic threat. That's how scared they are. And you know what? They should be. They should be scared, because I'm not going to take it anymore is going to become the mantra for a lot of disaffected people. And trust me, guys, I would say in terms of truly disaffected, harmed people in this broken system, it's probably north of 100 million people right now.
Oh, yeah.
So,
all right. So listen, we'll get back to this, right? Like, we'll get back to this later. Let's jump into, like, you know, stuff
our
with
esteemed guest.
Well, it's like I always say, like, I'm not a journalist or an
Fangirl?
expert. No, I'm not a journalist or an expert, but I'm a curator. I'm an expert curator. And so I like to think of that as, you know, that's what I do. I make sure we get the information from people who do know.
He is a Marine. You're not supposed to say former. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Always a Marine.
But he is a former senatorial candidate in the great state of North Carolina on the Green Party ticket. And the Democratic Party moved heaven and earth to make his life a living hell. So trust me, we are, as they say, post-duopoly, and there are reasons for that. And if anybody can speak to it, it is our good friend. Welcome back, Matthew Hoh, to Generational Change.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back on.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you not jet lagged? How do you?
Oh, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
am.
You look great.
I think I've got my coffee. My flight last night got really screwed up too, so I didn't get home until 2:30 a.m. So I missed the window to go to sleep. So like I was back on European time by the time I walked in my house. So, and to put it in just one more level beyond where it needs to be. 2 days before I went to Ireland last week, I found a stray puppy. And so now the puppy is back with me now. So I've got a stray puppy laying here. He's being very good in the crate. So if anyone in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area would like a puppy, I've got a 13-week-old male who needs a home. So yeah.
And all I have to say is you better find somebody quickly, because if you don't, that puppy's going to be yours, buddy.
Oh yeah, Peter, I gave him a name already. So like I'm halfway there. Like I made the mistake of that, you know, but I had him for 2 days, went to Ireland. A very kind lady took care of him for the week 8 days I was gone, just picked them back up. Literally got back in the house about 20 minutes before I came on with you guys, I guess.
Oh my God.
And he's being our
resident Irishman wants to know where in Ireland you were exactly.
Yeah, so I was in Dublin, I was in Galway, and then I took some time and went down to Tipperary and visited my family down there, which was really wonderful.
I had no idea that you had family there, and I love watching the pictures, and I would love to sit here and get into all things Ireland, because that is infinitely like more pleasant to talk about right now.
Well, but you know, it's interesting though. We could have a great conversation with it because with their politics, with the way their media works, with the frustrations they have, I heard many things in the last week there, similar to the conversations that we have here.
Interesting.
Their frustrations, the fact that they can't break through the corporate media, they can't break through the corporate parties. I mean, obviously there's differences, but the frustration is there as well.
Interesting, because the best compliment I think I got the entire campaign was somebody compared me to Claire Daly, and I was like, that's like the coolest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Right.
But I know that before that you were recently in Palestine, and I was watching some of the interviews that you were doing when you were over there, and some of the stuff that you were talking about, and I just want people to know what some of this stuff was that you saw, and in particular when you're talking about that field trip, because as somebody who went to a high school in Israel program in the complete brainwashing Zionist propaganda way that I did, I completely was able to see it. Like I almost felt like I got chills, like, because I know that that is very real. So would you just share like what you were there? I know you were the group, you were the delegation or something. Would you just share about that? And then like that story or anything else that you think, I mean, nothing. And I told people nothing gory, but just heavy.
Right. Sure. You know, thanks. Oh, and thanks for that. I thank you guys for having me back on. I think I did. I can't remember. But anyway, Yeah, so about a month ago, I went with a delegation to Palestine. Purpose was to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and also learn firsthand, of course, about their struggle for liberation. We spent our time in the West Bank. I was there for 8 days. At one point, we did go down to the Gaza border, and we were able to look into Gaza. And I was expecting us to go to basically a hilltop or maybe some field that you had a good, long view across. But we went to an observation platform, a purposely built deck, quite large, well established, that have been built, I think, around 2008 or so for the purposes of looking into Gaza, for the purposes of observing the caged human beings that are in Gaza. There is even the big metal binoculars. You put 5 shekels in and you could look through it, just like you're up Niagara Falls or someplace like that. And, we were going there, and it's quite heavy to be going to the border of Gaza. We knew what we were going to be experiencing, in a sense of we would be staring into an ongoing genocide. And I think we had a lot of trepidation in the group about how we were going to feel about this, what this was going to, what we were going to do. I think there's a lot of nervousness that we were going to feel as voyeurs, and a lot of us did, but to be that close to the genocide. But what really horrified us, and I should say that we weren't able to see too much. I mean, we were 600 yards from the fence line of North Gaza and about roughly 2 kilometers from where the built-up edge of northern Gaza was. And you couldn't really see anything because everything's been destroyed. So you think about that. Think about being a mile and a quarter, a mile and a half or so from something. You should be able to see 2, 3, 4, 5-story buildings. You couldn't, because it had been rubbled. It had been destroyed by the Israelis over the last year, of course. What you could see, we didn't see any airstrikes there that day. What we did see was large volumes of dust and dirt in the air, most likely coming from the Israeli earth-moving equipment. So maybe some from their tanks and armored vehicles moving around, but this was a massive cloud of dirt and dust in the air that would have been coming from their bulldozers as they remade Gaza in their image. The day we were there, Daniela Weiss, who's a prominent settler, maybe the most prominent settler in Israel, was there giving a press conference. And she had brought 40 trailers or caravans with her. And she had said, within a year we'll be in Gaza. And then the week afterwards, she said she had a list of 750 families who were ready to settle Gaza. So that was occurring as we were looking into this genocide, again, just a couple kilometers away from where hundreds of thousands of people in North Gaza, approximately 300,000, were in northern Gaza, I should say, in northern Gaza, who being starved to death, who being immiserated, who were being, of course, killed by the ongoing airstrikes, the IDF attacks, etc. What we weren't prepared for, I think the thing that shocked us and was somehow in an absurd fashion, right, and a Kafkaesque fashion. The thing that was most horrifying was that as we were there, a group of kids, teenagers, came to the top of the hill, to the top of this observation deck, and they were very excited. And the first boys who reached the top of the observation deck, when they saw Gaza, they became celebratory. They were very proud. They pumped their fist in the air. They gave the finger to Gaza. And these were teenagers who had been brought from 2 hours away on a school field trip to come and watch the genocide, to look into the genocide. And, you just saw the genocide from that aspect, that one, the promulgation of the Jewish supremacy within Israel that allows for the genocide to exist, right? So that its construction, its establishment of the Zionist ideology, the description of the Palestinians as the other, the need for a genocide to protect and preserve and allow for the future of Israel, all those things. We know it in the political system of Israel. We know it in the media system. We know it in the entertainment. Here we saw it in the school system. And the other thing was the genocide as a form of entertainment, right? As a form of voyeurism, if you will, of watching the extermination of the other, watching the extermination of subhuman species, the way that they're described. I mean, so it was quite horrifying to see these school kids there. And many of us, I think, still struggle with witnessing that. Again, we were prepared to see smoke. We're prepared to see bombs exploding. We knew we were going to be too far away to really see any details. But we certainly were not expecting to see the entertainment and scholastic purpose of a school field trip to witness Gaza.
Yeah, and so when I heard that, as somebody who grew up raised Zionist, and I actually did a program in the summer of '87 in Israel called Alexander Muz High School in Israel, which is it's a JNF program. It's similar to Birthright. People that do high school in Israel actually don't qualify for Birthright because Birthright's only for people that have never been. But it's the same thing. It's indoctrination just at a younger age. And when you were telling that is exactly the kind of thing that we would have been brought to go see.
Right.
And it's crazy. And I've shared this before. And like, I have a picture of me holding some like assault rifle thing that we were all posing and taking pictures with, because we had to be with armed guards at all times, which of course then begs the question, where are you taking teenagers? And, as a parent now, like, that's horrifying to me. I would not let my kid go to a program where you feel he needs an armed guard to be with him. Then obviously you're where you ought not be. And that's what we were doing. And they were, and I didn't know. I was just, I was 16, but it's horrifying. And so I totally see that. And those kinds of kids are kids that, unfortunately, like, I know those kinds of kids. I grew up with those kinds of kids.
I mean, they seem like regular, normal teenagers. A couple of members of our delegation spoke with them, or some of our younger delegation members. And, they had the interests of teenagers talking to an American group like you would expect.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, it's important about this too, is that this observation deck wasn't just built in the last 14 months. This was built 15 years ago, and it has been used for this purpose continuously. So whether there's an active Israeli military campaign against Gaza, and certainly you could go out there and watch that, whether the airstrikes in 08, 09, the airstrikes in 14 and 21, or just, hopefully maybe you're there and you get to catch something. Or it's the idea, I think, to your point, Jen, of bringing people to show them the danger, right? To show them the other, to show them the barbarians at the gates, right? And that's a motif, that's a theme that you've heard continually, right? This idea of civilization versus barbarism, right? And so you're able to take your children and show them what the threat is, show them what they're, put an actual put a picture, put something real, tangible on the threat. Look, it's right there. And if you don't follow, if you don't believe, well, then you can go there and see it yourself, kind of thing. So,
yeah, Israel's very big on showing off what they believe to be showing everyone what their birthright is. Look at that. That's your land. That shall be yours. You shall get there.
It's also the memorialization of things too. I think there was a Naomi Klein article about this. Not much had been published. Not many weeks prior to our visit there, and a couple of people I was on delegation were familiar with this article, and she talked about the weaponization of memorials in Israel, how Israel has more memorials per capita than anyone else in the world. And you see that the constant utilization of memorials, of remembrance, of the victimization, et cetera, to reinforce this need for security, to reinforce this need for war, to reinforce the need for apartheid. How do you not get it? Look, don't you remember what just happened? And one of the things that occurred right before we went to the observation deck, we had gone to the town of Sderot. It's an Israeli settlement just 7 kilometers from the border. And we had met with a number of Israelis, rabbis, some peace activists, October 7th survivors. But right next to where we met had been a police station that had been taken over by Hamas fighters, and it had been destroyed in the fighting. And there's a beautiful memorial park already there. Like here in the U.S., it would have taken us like 8 years to build something like this. This was not just a collection of drawings on a wall or anything like this. This was a well done, professional engineered design park. It was lovely, actually, and serving the purpose as a memorial. So you could see how quickly they were able to turn around and continue the narrative, continue the storyline, to continue that type of understanding with this in the society of the life and death cosmic struggle that they are in that goes back 3,000 years.
Yeah. Peter, I feel like you feel always left out when I get on like my anti-Zionist sort of like rampage.
Not at all. Okay. Here to listen, here to observe. Obviously, you've served as a Marine, and I am sure you're observing what's going on in Syria right now, particularly Damascus. Usually when they have these propaganda, media blitzes, oh, the Syrian people are free. Everything's great now. We got rid of Assad. Oh, yeah, you're going to get carpet bombed into oblivion, but at least you had the knowledge of knowing that you died with Assad not being in power. How do you even peel back the onion of what is going on in Syria right now in lieu of what Israel is currently doing?
Well, let me wait before you do that. Let me guess. Netanyahu is so responsible for the taking out of Assad that he was so victorious in his success. It's all because of Israel and their military prowess. Is that correct? Because that's I heard. I mean,
certainly the Israelis were involved. The Turks have a major role in this. The tragedy of Syria is that you have all these foreign interests there, and certainly if you look at the Syrian war that begins in 2011, it's got nothing to do with the Syrian people. I shouldn't say that. It's got very little to do in the way it evolves with the Syrian people. Certainly, there was that animosity towards Assad and his government. There was an organic desire to participate in actions similar to what we were seeing throughout the Middle East at that time during the Arab Spring. But then, of course, that got co-opted and taken over by such a diverse group of foreign interests, including, Al-Qaeda. So you have that continuation. The war was put on a low simmer for these last 2024, these last 7 years or so. And many people, I think, rightly thought that it was over. It was done with, that those who had opposed the Syrian government have been defeated, and they are essentially kept in a camp in the northwest. But that's not the way it was going. And nobody told the Turks this. Nobody told the Qataris this. Nobody told the Israelis this, or the Americans, that it's over. Assad won. And what we've seen happen over the last years, because it would have taken years to plan and prepare for this, was the ultimately successful preparation for what we've witnessed in the last couple of weeks. I think now probably most people would be surprised at how quickly the Assad government fell, but maybe not. And maybe it was that brittle and that fragile. But the American sanctions over the last half dozen years that have really crippled the Syrian economy, really hurt any chance for the Syrian people to rebuild their nation, but also has caused Assad's government to again be very fragile, to be very tenuous. Those sanctions were incredibly important to allow for what occurred in the last couple of weeks. Certainly, the presence of the American troops in eastern Syria, controlling the Syrian wheat fields and the oil fields, are in line with those sanctions, right? So it wasn't just the external sanctions that prevented Syria from importing what they needed. It also was the American troop presence in those oil and wheat fields that prevented the Syrians from having any type of resource to export or to utilize, again, for their own well-being. So the American role in this was massive. And of course, the Israeli role, continually bombing them for years. The bombing campaigns by the Israeli military this past year in Syria have been, as we've seen, very effective. And then the Turks have been preparing both the jihadist and the, quote, moderate, unquote, opposition forces for these last several years to do exactly as they did. You would have the Kurds as well, the Russians, the Qataris play a role. You still have the Islamic State there. So you have all these different factions and powers, almost none of which are actually Syrian, having this having this episode in the last couple of weeks that has remade the Middle East. And, so I think the feeling I think that we're seeing being expressed out of Tel Aviv, out of Washington, of the triumph of this is understandable, because they really do feel that they have accomplished in the last couple of weeks in Syria what they failed to accomplish for the better part of 15 years prior. And that goes even farther back, because if you understand the belief system, that the kind of the idea behind what many in Washington, D.C. see as the need to remake the Middle East in order to ensure Israel has dominance throughout the Middle East, getting rid of Syria, or getting rid of Assad and his government in Syria, has always been one of their prime goals, along with getting rid of Hezbollah, making Iraq an American allied country, on and on. So what we saw the culmination of this week, and by no means was this a finale. This could only be a temporary situation that we're observing, and who knows where this goes. And I think those who are putting their money that Syria will resemble Libya are probably those who are playing the smart money right now. But the results of these last 2 weeks, this goes back to the project of a new American century and the New York conservatives in the 1990, the people who gave us the Iraq War. This is something that was one of their ultimate goals and objectives. And it just shows that the people we are up against will never give up, that they are persistent, that the empire is never going to let something go once it's made its mind up that it has to have something or has to destroy something. And so the lessons that we can take for those of us who are opposed to the empire, those who are opposed to these decades of ruinous war policy, there's a lot we can learn from this last couple of weeks, well, the last year, in terms of the effectiveness of the American empire, the effectiveness of the Israelis, the duplicity of the Turks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You look around at everything that's going on, especially on the domestic side. And we've been saying for a while that Israel is ultimately what's going to sink America, at least in terms of foreign policy. In terms of domestic policy, we see a number of these stories that have been coming out, but obviously the story of the day is Luigi Mangione and what he decided to do. I would imagine that one of the motivating factors for you to run a statewide race in North Carolina was because, like any place in the United States, healthcare is a crisis. Most people do not have it, and we are still here pretending like something significant is not going to happen in order to spark that change.
Right.
I think it's safe to say that that change is inevitable. And while we did play this clip on status quo, we are going to play it again for effect, because people need to understand that the people are behind Luigi, and that includes the people behind the gated walls.
Oh, this is interesting.
Free Luigi!
It's too windy.
Ashley, they're going nuts in there right now watching this video on playback. This was just from a few hours ago, and here they are, 10 o'clock as promised. They said earlier today, tell Ashley Banfield that Luigi is watching at 10 o'clock. I mean, obviously, that's just a hard roast at this point, because they're not near Luigi in any way, as confirmed by the Department of Corrections earlier.
Just the idea that, and I said it before, there's honor amongst thieves.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said there's honor amongst thieves. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely a certain amount of respect in amongst incarcerated people for people that punch up.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think, I think so. I think that what you're seeing there in that video is exactly that. People who are respecting someone who they view as doing something noble, as doing a gesture against the system, against fighting the good fight for the downtrodden, so on and so forth, almost like a Robin Hood figure. And I think that the reaction we're seeing from Americans, many of whom are not condoning murder, but saying, what do you expect? What do you expect? I mean, and as well as too, I think the larger conversation too of what is violence? Why is it acceptable to do the paperwork that condemns people to death, that condemns people to suffering, that condemns families to financial ruination? That's not considered violence, but shooting a man is. I mean, so also too, the exposure of the dissonance between the American elites, particularly those in corporate media, and their anger at the American public for holding these views, for having this frustration, this rage against a system that is killing tens of thousands of a year, making just financial hardship, upturning lives. I mean, I'll tell you. So I have I've been separated for 5 years now. I've seen my ex twice during that time, and we're still together because of the healthcare insurance. Right. And when you tell people that story, everyone knows someone like that, oh yeah, no, my cousin's doing the same thing. Right. I mean, like, so you have that type of people are living their lives in a way that's just ridiculous. I can't find a better word than that. And so I think that the cheering for Luigi, the support for him as this type of noble villain, if you will, is understandable, because it's a system that is killing people. It's certainly one of the reasons why, Peter, brought my campaign, why I decided to run 2 years ago, or was it, I guess, 3 years ago now when I decided to run,
20.
because I just knew too many people that were calling. I knew too many people who were close to me, people I love, people who are in my inner circle of family and friends and loved ones, who were looking at their checking accounts before deciding whether to call the doctor. People who were not supposed to be living like this. If people understand what I'm meaning, you're not in your 20s anymore. You're in your 40s and your 50s, and you're not going to the dentist because you can't afford to go. I knew way too many people I love, and that was one of the and of course, I think perhaps, maybe the murder, if it had occurred prior to the election, may have generated more of a conversation. I doubt it. It would have, the corporate media would have done their best to shape the conversation. But, it's curious that, what did we hear about healthcare in the last year in the election? We heard absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah, well, and that's another reason why we were talking before about why anything that this guy has said that's going to make sense, they're not going to put in the media. Like, he doesn't have, his manifesto is not like the ramblings of a mentally ill person. So they're not going to want to put that out there, because people are going to look at that and be like, yeah, I get that. That makes complete logical sense to me. And, there is this rage. Like, I am so enraged, and I have healthcare, but the whole concept that people are clutching their pearls over this in those corporate media spaces. And that these are also, by the way, many of the same people that were clutching their pearls about nonviolent protests on college campuses. Right. So again, if you are going to stifle nonviolent protest, this is what is going to happen. You have more and more desperate people, more and more people with nothing left to lose, and everybody has access to firearms here. So what do people think is going to happen?
And not only that, but you're also in a situation where corporate media knows that this is something that could truly bring them down. So they don't know what the hell to do. They're really trying their best not to have to cover this. And as vain of a society, as much vanity that our society is made up of. I mean, we're a reality TV obsessed culture in many corners of it, which is disturbing, but I digress. We are also seeing the effects of them fearing the fact that Mangione is an attractive, affluent man. And by having a face like that on TV tell you that you need universal health care, that becomes an even greater risk, because you have all of these women that apparently have been donating money to his defense fund.
Why do you keep thinking it's only women?
Maybe there's men too. I'm not saying
sure there are.
But they did say that there was an abundance of women that were contributing to his cause. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that. I think sorry, the Seinfeld references will still exist.
You've got to stop. Seinfeld is dead to me. You've got to stop.
However, I do think it's important to note that even Senator Warren was willing to say a visceral response to insurance CEOs' killing should be warning to everyone in the healthcare system. Yes, that is correct. it should be a warning to everyone in the healthcare system. Senator Warren said in a new interview that the visceral response to the killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson should serve as a warning to everyone in the healthcare system, because the people can only be pushed so far. Violence is never the answer, because it always has to be a disclaimer. But
I don't agree with that, by the way. I disagree with that. I think that violence.
Let's not crush our channel any worse than it's already been crushed. Let's at least try to maintain it. Everybody knows already where you stand. But people can be pushed only so far. This is a warning that if you push people hard enough, they lose faith in the ability of their government to make change, lose faith in the ability of the people who are providing the healthcare to make change, and start to take matters into their own hands in ways that will ultimately be a threat to everyone. But here's the thing. It's never worked for the people. But as Jen has pointed out, for the good portion of the time that we've been on the air doing this show, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. Yep. They have been in the pig stage for a very long time, but it is painfully obvious as a result of, on the domestic side, what just happened, and on the foreign side with Israel over the past year. And you could throw Ukraine in there as well.
I just think that you don't get to be the most violent empire on the face of the earth and be somehow shocked when it comes home to roost. And I very much agree with what you were saying before, Matthew, and I was saying it before on Status Quo. I want people to rethink what we consider violence, because austerity and that mindset and denial of healthcare is violence. The level of violence in a society is always dictated by the oppressor. The amount of force necessary to resist the boot on your neck is by whatever means necessary. And I don't, we want to sit there and keep saying violence isn't the answer. Yes, all things being equal, if we started in the beginning, violence isn't the answer. But this has gotten to the point where we are so far past that as a civilization that to say that is just so beyond stupid. And just extremely not reading the room. But I don't agree. I think and let me tell you, and I've said it before, if somebody hurt my kids, or if my kids didn't get healthier, and I had nothing left to lose, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. And I find it infuriating. And I find what Brian Thompson did as violent. I think if somebody was standing on the street and shooting a whole bunch of people and someone shot him to stop him, we'd be saying that's a hero. But this piece of shit gets to sit there and allow for people to be dead all over the place. And because he doesn't actually physically do it, we don't consider that violence. And I completely disagree. And violence begets violence. And apparently, this is the level of violence that our society is calling for. The level of violence is determined by the oppressor. And I am just tired of that. And I am not a pacifist. And I am done with that shit. And if somebody put hands on me or my kids, I'd friggin' take them out. And I do not care anymore about that. And I don't even own a firearm.
Right. It's interesting too. The dissonance, the wooden headedness of the elites in this country, whether they be in the media or political or business, to not understand that if you don't have an avenue for redress, that if people do not have an ability to change what's wrong, this is going to be the logical outcome. So just as insulting and as demeaning and ludicrous when you have people in the media expressing outrage that someone will be murdered this way, or that someone also when they then say that you need to change the system, that the correct thing to do is when the system is unable to be changed.
Just vote.
The system. How are you going to change this system?
Vote harder.
I mean,
just vote harder.
Exactly. And so the inability of the elite to understand that the answers they're providing, the recourse they're providing, the remedies they're providing are insulting to us, as if we are somehow foolish enough or naive enough or rubish enough to think that, oh, yes, you're right. Exactly. The ballot box is where this will all change, as if the system isn't completely insulated by money, that the system isn't completely bought, that we don't have a system that is essentially legalized bribery. And, until the system itself feels threatened, one of the problems we have is that we very often approach power with nothing other than our good ideas. And power doesn't care at all about that. And power doesn't care about marches. I mean, I just heard someone the other day said, oh, that's nice. They had a march of people. It changes nothing unless you're able to actually apply something with that mobilization, with that organization to threaten power, to force them to do something they don't want to do. And when you have this situation, like as you were saying, with the healthcare insurance companies, what's the threat to them? What's the danger to them that will force them to change? They own the government. That's not going to force them to change. We have to have healthcare, or else, right? What's the alternative?
Right.
You know what I mean? So what then becomes the only way to address this incredible, wicked, and vile injustice that is again, I mean, we're not being hyperbolic here. We're not exaggerating here. Tens of thousands, was it 40 to 70,000 Americans die every year because of the healthcare insurance industry? And how many millions more are ruined? I mean, whether it's the psychological and emotional distress of going through this, whether it's the financial ruination. What are the numbers? I mean, I ran that camp. You ran your campaign more recently than I, Jen. So you should have this in your head better than I. But like, was it 1 in 4, 1 in 2 cancer survivors go bankrupt? I mean, all the different things are it's astounding. And again, I was just in Europe when this happened, and they were fascinated by this. And many of them also understand what's going on. They understand it. And just as you said, if someone hurt my child, if someone hurt my parent, if someone hurt my spouse or significant other, what would I do? Particularly when I have nothing left to lose. And I heard someone quote, freedom is just another word. We have nothing left to lose, right? You now have the freedom to act. And it is. This is whether we'll see more following Luigi Mangione, and how the establishment will react to make sure that doesn't happen. But this terrifies them. This is very similar. These acts of violence like this, very similar to how they feel about like TikTok and about people like you all, right? And the threat that it poses, because this is a type of thing that can upset them. One, it's the information, the knowledge, as well as two, the utilizing that information, knowledge to act, particularly in a manner that they're actually threatened by.
Good. I like that. That pleases me. Do you want life? What's this from? What's this new?
The New York Times.
Oh, okay.
Suspect in CEO killing withdrew from a life of privilege and promise. The suspect, Luigi Mangione, was an Ivy League tech graduate from a prominent Maryland family who in recent months had suffered physical and psychological pain.
They're going to use every possible twist and turn of this to just obviously try to villainize him because they don't have much. But Matthew, my theory is this. I just don't see them finding 12 people that don't have a bias against healthcare. I don't see them finding 12 people that will convict this guy. I don't see it.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Certainly, whoever they get who's able to qualify for the jury who hasn't heard about this, you're already got to be concerned about their wherewithal in terms of. But I mean, he did what he did. He shot and we shouldn't. I mean, he's reported. I mean, it's clear. It's on video. But the purposes weren't so much the killing as it was what used to be called the agitprop, right? The idea that you need an act to cause further actions. You need an act to excite. You need something that's going to inspire people to then take action themselves. And it catches on like a fire, right? It's the small ember leads to the great forest fire. And I think that's essentially what people are attempting to do here. And I expect, unless the establishment realizes whether it's the domestic establishment or the imperial our empire, unless it understands the danger that it's facing, and that the only way to avoid further acts like this from that ember becoming a forest fire is to actually change, then the history tells us what can come.
Well, the thing that I think is important to note here, and this is exactly why they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're identifying the fact that he does come from an affluent family, but how did his affluent family make their money? They made their money through senior living facilities.
Among other things.
But they were profits of essentially the same industry. So they were taking advantage of people in their most vulnerable circumstances, which I've always maintained is the biggest problem we have here, and that has always been the biggest problem with capitalism, is that it doesn't see a line when it comes to people's pain and suffering if there is a profit to be had behind it.
I feel like I'm making progress with you after you make a statement like that, Peter. I feel like I'm
always maintained that I support a hybrid system.
There's no such thing. That's like a two-state solution. That's
well, I think what you did to take it a step further, it's the idea that every last penny needs to be, taken from anything available, right? So anything from which money can be squeezed from, it must be squeezed. Right. For these people, the idea of a stranded asset is like is unholy. It's blasphemous. Right. The idea that you didn't get your last ounce out of it, your last dollar out of it. And so that's why you see, I think many people throughout the country feel this way, just in terms of the development in this country. God forbid we have any green spaces. God forbid we have any place that isn't developed, that isn't, if it's not turned into apartment or townhomes or homes that people can't afford, then you've got to pave it over then to create it for something else, right? Or you got to use it for commercial purposes. So I think that the idea that capitalism is destroying us is seen, in so many different ways. But one, you don't get a better example than, of course, what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Colin, if you can scroll down a little bit, what are
we looking for here?
Again, they're making mention of the fact that he's Ivy League. He was valedictorian of his.
And what do you think their intent is? Because I don't see how that paints him negatively. Like,
it's funny because that's fine.
They're trying to make it look like they're trying to take away the issue of the class war in this by doing that. They're trying to make it be like he's not one of you all peasants.
Right.
Because the only thing they can do is that, because otherwise, and I do not see how they're finding 12 people that aren't biased against the insurance industry.
Yeah, they're just essentially trying to discredit the narrative that this was inevitable. That if you hurt people, they're going to hurt you back. But and that there was an injustice here, there's a continual violation of human dignity in this country. Right, that has to be answered, has to be addressed, and so I think they're doing anything they can to undercut that dialogue, because this is something we should be talking about. And this is what comes from it, but it's not. It won't. It'll be focused on the fact that he's Ivy League, or his parents did this, or he's got chiseled, tan, good looks, et cetera, anything to distract from the conversation that this is a system that this man was making millions and millions of dollars by denying health care to people and killing them.
Exactly.
But they're also, like I said, there are many layers to this that put them in a very serious bind. How did his family make his money? Oh, he happens to come from money. He happens to come from the right side of town. This is not some, hapless fool who found a gun from the Bronx and ended up in the right place at the right time that they could just pass off as a crazy person. Plus, it's the fact that it is the CEO of the most, not successful, people like to use that word, I will not, the most profitable for-profit health conglomerate in the world.
With the number one amount of claim denial simultaneously.
1 out of 3.
That is the perfect crossover that makes that kind of anger.
Exactly. And so when you see the people that are out there trying to paint this like the New York Times clearly will, because Lord knows they're funded by UnitedHealth, who, as we've pointed out time and again, and I think we mentioned this maybe the last time we were on the show, I do think that RFK's presidential run was actually a good thing from the standpoint that he was the one candidate who was talking about private equity and what that has done to housing in the United States. Well, as it turns out, private equity led by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, the big three in housing. Well, guess what? They're the 3 biggest shareholders in UnitedHealth. So that's really all you need to know. All of these.
It's a big party.
Yeah. Like it's all connected. It's all one big nasty puzzle piece. But now the people are starting to see it. Now, we only can hope that our reach is as big as it can possibly be We all know the great work that Jordan is doing over at Status Quo. But of course, we know a lot of content creators are not framing it in this light, which is unfortunate because for them, it's about a career. For us, it's about how the hell do we get this message out there that hopefully thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands, if not hopefully millions of people are able to see that message. Because the thing that made Bernie's run in 2016 so vital is that so many people were angry then, and he was starting to show people where to direct their anger. Well, you know, the Koch brothers are doing their thing and George Soros is doing his thing. And it's like most people don't know who these guys are. They don't know who the real oligarchs are that are controlling everything. And so what Mangione has successfully done is he has already pointed the finger in the right direction, and people are starting to look there and say, oh, so you're the reason that I can't have a healthy, sustainable life. That's why you have the story that just came out earlier this afternoon that a Florida woman decided that when she called Blue Cross Blue Shield and said that she was not able to get proper coverage.
She made a threatening remark.
Saying, oh, yeah, well, deny, defend, depose, you're all next.
You're all next.
Terroristic threat. That's how they treated it. So a Florida woman has been charged for ending a call with Blue Cross Blue Shield with the words, delay, deny, depose, you people are next. She was charged with threats to conduct a mass shooting or an act of terrorism, and her bond was set at $100,000. Gee, Matthew, what do you think? You think that she just said that out of the blue? Or
like she just called them for no reason to say that?
Perhaps there's a distinct possibility that the reason she said it is because she, like millions of others, suffered the same fate at the hands of, in this case, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Sorry, denied. You're not getting any coverage. Good luck.
Right, exactly, and it's not something that's you know, you're not getting upgraded whatever. You know, this is your health care, and let alone the cost that she's probably already put out. So the hurt that this woman is under, the suffering that she's going through, and then her fear, her anxiety about the future, whether it's her health or maybe it's a loved one, it's her kid or someone like that, or it's the idea that this is financially going to ruin me, or very possibly both. You know, we have to remember too that this is not new though. We've seen this before. You know, just in the USA, go back 140 years with the labor issues that go throughout the decades leading up to the Great Depression and the reforms of the New Deal. I mean, this is something that is we've experienced it before, we've seen it before, and we understand how the reaction is going to be. It's going to be forceful. It's going to be meant to terrorize. They're going to call her a terrorist, but what they're going to do is they're terrorizing the nation. So they're going to make it so that if you say anything on Facebook, if you say anything on Instagram, if God forbid you actually say anything that can be recorded, it will be utilized against you. So they're going to try and suppress, right? They're going to try and quiet people, not just censor, but they're going to try and strike fear in everybody. And then, of course, they're going to make examples out of people. And you know, we should expect this to be a long struggle. You look back at the unrest in the 1880s, when robber barons, industrialists were being murdered in their homes, you know, because the labor movement was representing that suffering of the working people in this country, and those actions were taken. Well, it took decades for that to turn into, you know, again, the New Deal reforms that kind of capped that struggle. But so, I mean, I think we have to keep that in mind, that if nothing happens next week or nothing happens in 6 weeks from now or 6 months from now or even 6 years from now, it doesn't mean that the struggle's over. It doesn't mean that there's a winner in this, that Mangione was sent to prison, never be heard from again, and that was the end of it. We have to look at it in a big context, the continuous line of history, the continuous struggle, and know that people are suffering, because the reality is that regardless of what Luigi Mangione did, we all know people, and many of the people who are watching this right now, who are going to check their bank account before they call their doctor. And that is just wrong. The indignity of that, the immorality of that, the injustice of that. But also too, there's this is what bothers me a lot as well, is why aren't we smarter than this? How is this a good system? How is this a system that is going to, in any way, shape, or form, benefit the country? The idea that we don't have a healthy workforce is just ridiculously stupid. The idea that we are putting this type of debt upon people. So again, when I was just in Ireland and talking to family and others about this, because this is a big story, and I tell you, you know how much it costs. You know, my friend was telling, you know, how much it costs for healthcare in the U.S. You know, you tell them all these facts and everything. I told him about one friend he's got a wife, 2 kids. He's got one of his employees on his healthcare program. They live in Ohio. Last year, 2 years ago, it was $28,000, right? Plus whatever the deductible was, plus whatever the out-of-pocket stuff was, right? $28,000 for 5 people. I mean, and that's normal. That's about what we're looking at here, right? Where I think it's about $500 a month per person, roughly, is what we have in the U.S. Every state's different, of course. But you tell people in Europe about this, and they just can't believe it. They don't know why we haven't broken out the torches and pitchforks already.
Not only that,
I'm glad they're seeing it, because I have heard that this whole privatization profit system is making its little wily way over there too.
Yeah.
And that is one of those things that it's like they cannot in any way, shape, or form give an inch. Like it's like they really can't afford to do that. Before you go, I really want to ask you something completely unprompted, completely without any like thoughts on my thoughts on this, but just as somebody who's a Marine, what is your opinion about the Daniel Penny thing? About the Daniel Penny, Jordan Neely, and the verdict, and how he handled that situation?
Oh, I think it's a disgrace. You know, certainly he killed that man. He had all the power to do what he wanted to do in that moment. And in his anger, in his self-righteousness, he killed that man. And simple as that. And whether that means it's a manslaughter charge or a 3rd degree or whatever, but the fact that he expresses no regret either. The fact that even like after his acquittal, he still expresses no regret, doesn't seem to have any shame or humility in the moment, that he seems to be proud, if you will, of his actions, and of course the celebration of it. And this is you mentioned before, Jen, about punching up. You know, and this is punching down.
Yeah.
I mean,
completely.
This was somebody. I mean, even give them the benefit, even go along with the storyline that people on the train were afraid and everything else. He had subdued this man, and this was a weak. This is a man who was weak, who he had subdued, and he killed him. He had all the power in that moment, and he chose to kill rather than apply mercy or to, you know, be rational and say, I'm going to hold this person here until the police come. Right. And then at that point, you can say, OK, this person was doing something where he was trying to protect others and he didn't harm someone who was weaker than him. You know, I mean, that's not, of course, how it played out. It played out as somebody who saw the opportunity to hurt somebody and kill somebody. And this ties in a way, looping back to what we're talking about with the school field trip to Gaza, the Israeli mentality on this, the viewing of the other, civilization versus barbarism. I think that had a lot to do in his head, that he was defending civilization against barbarism. And certainly there's race playing a factor in all this, likely, but this idea that, you know, he was defending the civilized versus the barbaric, I think was something that was running through his head at the time. And of course has been amplified over the last a year and a half, however long this has been going on for. I think that's been the storyline about this is a man who is standing up for civilization against against the barbarity, against, you know, so on and so forth.
I saw it as a bully move. And to me, somebody and people, and I'm so thankful for you because you answered exactly how I imagine like a true, like, honorable service person would answer. That advantage to me that he was a Marine, he has more accountability and should know better how to subdue this person without killing them. The fact that he couldn't do it without killing him is disgusting to me. And
well, he could have. He didn't have to kill. Yeah, no, he didn't have to kill him. He chose to continue to strangle him and choke him to death. I mean, that was a choice. Yeah,
exactly. It's disgusting. And I also wanted to posture this out for everyone. What if their races were reversed? Everything else was exactly the same. So Daniel Penny was a Marine, but he was Black, and Jordan Neely was mentally ill. Obviously not Michael Jackson impersonating, but white. And do we think that this would have gone the same way?
No, it wouldn't. There'd be much more conversation about mental illness. There would be this thing. Absolutely no. The compassion, the attempt to understand, the empathy, the explanation would be flipped in the opposite, so. Right? I mean, the roles would be reversed essentially. The storyline would be turned upside down in this in terms of, absolutely.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for reaffirming my sweetness for Marines. I was second guessing.
I personally don't think that Penny tried to kill him, but I also think that he did not use any restraint. And
that's a bully.
And by that measure, everyone wants to, and again, this always happens. It's, listen, yes, Perry's got the rap sheet. He's got mental health problems.
You mean Neely?
Neely. Did I say Perry? I said Perry. Neely had a lot of problems, and he was, by any measure, a criminal. At the end of the day, which is the one thing, again, that doesn't get pointed out in this entire story, is that what had started under Reagan and has been accelerated to such an unconscionable degree today is this idea that we do not treat mental health in this country. And of all the reasons that we need a single payer universal healthcare system is that people can get the mental health care that they so desperately need. Right. It's why instead of getting that mental health care, you get millions upon millions of people that are hooked on painkillers or God knows how many different things. We talk about the fentanyl crisis in this country. The reason we have a fentanyl crisis is because people take drugs to begin with, and they end up taking something that can ultimately kill them. Because think of it this way. Why would people take fentanyl even if they knew that there was a lethal risk involved? Because the living without the medication is so fucking painful that people can't deal with it anymore. Here's what Mr. Neely's father had to say.
I just want to say I miss my son. My son didn't have to go through this. I didn't have to go through this either. It hurts. It really, really hurts. What are we going to do, people? What's going to happen to us now? I had enough of this. The system is rigged. Come on, people. Let's do something about this.
Yeah. Well, Matthew, thank you. So I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you're jet lagged. You've been here an hour. You're such the trooper. I so appreciate you. I really do. You've like sort of, I feel better now. I feel better now about the situation, that I wasn't crazy for thinking what I thought about that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's the first time I've seen you since you've run, so or since the election. So thank you for running. Thank you for putting yourself out there like that, and for representing those of us who do not go along with the system that we have. And I think tonight's conversation with you all, we touched on a lot of different things. And it shows whether it's the wars overseas, whether it's the war against people here at home. Our wars overseas are mirrors of our wars here at home. The violence in both places, it's we need more people standing up against it. Otherwise, you're going to have more of the violence like we've seen, like we just spoke about.
And this is the key, and this is the key point here. And TM is right. Neely was homeless and hangry and acting out, and people were scared. But if you're not going to go to the root cause of the problem, if you're not going to identify the fact that this man should have been in a mental institution, right, and they rejected him constantly. His father made note of the fact that they tried to get him help, and the system kept rejecting him. Why does the system reject?
Because it's a profit system.
For profit. That's
right.
It. End of discussion. There is
but that's separate from the whole issue as to that he was murdered by this guy and didn't have to be. And
hold on. I don't agree. I don't agree for this reason, because there's still a lot of people who are only looking at it from the surface. They're only looking at that very likely Mr. Neely on that day was a danger to the people that were there. Let's assume that he was. So you may be right in that Penny was correct to subdue him, not kill him, obviously.
He could have just stood in between him and those other people. And then if that guy had put hands on him, then he might have justification. But you know what? No. And I don't care that they didn't feel safe or they felt uncomfortable. I don't give a shit about their feelings.
But that's not my point. My point is that they're still not dealing with the systemic problem.
Right.
You can deal with one person and say, well, this person was violent. Yes, but why? Because there's going to be another Jordan Neely.
I don't know that he was violent just because they felt uncomfortable. But it doesn't matter. We're getting too far off on it. Thank you so much, Matthew.
I don't think we're getting too far off at all. I think that what I said is very relevant. I think that people are not identifying the core problem here. Whereas on the one hand, they may be right on the surface, but they're wrong on the substance. That's the problem. If you're not going to go to the root cause of why this is happening, as I just said, there will be another Jordan Neely story in the not too distant future.
I think it's wrong on all counts. So it doesn't matter. And I don't care that people felt unsafe. That's just me.
Okay.
Okay.
Matthew, thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Matthew, go get some sleep. Thank you for coming.
All right. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you, brother, and happy holidays.
Hey, thank you. You as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's try this. Tell me what you think.
Love him.
Do you want to try? Do you guys like it this way?
You're too close then if you want to do it that way. You're like, yeah.
Is that okay?
If you want to do it that way, that's fine. But you have to have us where we're the same size.
Yes. And TM is right. It is a systemic failure all the way around. That is the problem.
It's the problem. And I hate bullies.
Sure.
That's
listen, there is no question.
Is that Daniel Penny is a bully. And he could have handled that situation without killing him 1,000%.
I'm not disagreeing with that point.
And I do not care that those people felt unsafe. Jordan Neely did not put hands on anybody. And Daniel Penny could have just put himself between him and those people until any other thing was necessary. And I'm wearing my Palestine earrings, Andy. Can you guys see? These are my Palestine earrings. They're just gold Palestine shapes. And these are, guys, this and my keffiyeh are from a page called Handmade Palestine. They're on Instagram, and it's a co-op of Palestinian artisans in the West Bank. They are based in Ramallah, and their stuff is beautiful. And they're very, they also have a lot of things that are made by special needs individuals. And it's a great organization. So Handmade Palestine, check them out.
A great organization to support.
Yes.
There is a story that you wanted to cover because, as I had mentioned, I know a lot of you guys, we've got some new amazing supporters that are here this evening that are coming over from Status Quo, which is awesome. We're very happy to have you guys here.
Welcome, welcome.
And Hollywood Jaded, that's a great point.
Oh, somebody...
when you are
exactly,
yeah, you are trained properly to de-escalate. Now, obviously, he did de-escalate, but then he took it way further than he should have.
That's absurd. Also, I want to touch on something that I saw. Somebody in the comments was saying, "What does it mean to say depose?" And I didn't necessarily see the correct answer, and it might have already been through, and I didn't see it. But just so people know, depose has to do with just keep them tied up in lawsuits. Keep them tied up in all sorts of depositions and prolong helping them as long as possible. Because at the end of the day, whether or not they eventually give you what you need, their goal is to hold on to the money as long as possible before they have to pay out. So even if they ultimately do end up having to pay, they're going to try to hold you up in litigation for eternity. And that is what depose is. It's about just spending your resources on discovery and litigation. That's what it is.
Jen, we're going to cover this story that you've wanted to cover for a few days now. I think the best way to open it is to kind of explain to people what it's like in South Florida in terms of the mass migration of the Israeli population, which has always been big in South Florida to begin with. It's the second biggest outside of Brooklyn, New York. Most people, I don't think, know that, but they know it now. And we will continue to spread that word. However, I don't think people truly understand, as I mentioned on Status Quo, I'll mention it here. My career is commercial real estate, and the Israelis, this is where a significant portion of them make their money. And so it looks like we had a huge story that broke
down here
recently. So I'm going to play the clip real quick, and then we will comment.
Yeah.
Charges unsealed today for Tal, Oren, and Alon Alexander detail heinous crimes allegedly carried out by these individuals. The Alexander brothers allegedly conspired to prey on innocent women, coercing them into engaging in sexual acts. The defendants allegedly used their wealth and status to recruit and pay for the travel of their intended victims, and then manipulated them into participating in sexual acts without their consent. The FBI's investigations into these types of cases are only possible because of the bravery victims show in coming forward. We are committed to doing everything in our power to advocate for victims. The FBI has dedicated professionals ready to support them. We will hold those who victimize them responsible for their actions. If you or someone you know is a victim in this case, the number to call is 1-800-CALL-FBI, or email us at alexander-case@fbi.gov. We will not allow this type of alleged behavior to go unimpeded. Predators forcefully coercing victims into sexual acts cannot and will not be tolerated. The FBI, along with our law enforcement partners, are committed to investigating sex trafficking and ensuring anyone attempting to engage in it is held accountable in the criminal justice system.
So I don't want to, I mean, I understand why this infuriates me to no end is obviously that this is an Israeli family. And these are very, very privileged people. And what bothers me so much in this country is how much why this bothers me. And it is not that I think, first of all, the boys, the brothers were born in this country. Their parents are Israeli. So it's really just a matter of an example. But, we hear so much punching down towards immigrants, in all different ways. Okay. Whether it has to do with the labor force, whether it has to do with the one violent crime that they keep happened by somebody who was an undocumented person, when we know that immigrants definitely commit less violent crime. We know this. But one of the things we keep hearing over and over again, not even just about the Haitians, although Haitians eating dogs and cats and you got to worry about your pets. That's all that kind of
eating the dogs, they're eating the cats.
And I just want to be very clear that if we are under threat from certain immigrants here in South Florida, to me, it's the Israelis. It's the Israelis. What we're having now, to me, is a situation akin to when Nazi Germany, when a lot of the Nazis fled to like Argentina. This is the kind of stuff that's now happening here. To me, I believe that if you poll, and my understanding is that this has been done a few times over the past 14 months, the typical Israeli, they are totally okay with what's going on in Gaza, regardless of their opinion about Netanyahu. They are good with what's going on in Gaza. They are good with ethnic cleansing. That means that the majority of Israelis are genocidal. Well, I don't want genocidal immigrants coming here. I don't want that here. To me, that's a problem. But the point is, there's this level of protection and entitlement that we've always known over certain types of immigrants over other types of immigrants. So the fact that Israelis that come here anyway are wealthy, they're affluent, and they're considered white. They're white and affluent. So we like those immigrants. Please keep coming over here. As genocidal as you might be, as sex trafficking as you might be, please come over here. But we're worried about poor people trying to cross over the border from Honduras or Guatemala or where, this is the kind of nonsense that we're dealing with. And nobody questions wealthy Israelis. You just come on in, bring your genocidal thoughts in here. No worries. It makes me, it drives me insane. That's why.
Tal and Oren Alexander, top real estate brokers and brothers who started at real estate company Douglas Elliman and their brother Alon, were arrested Wednesday morning. They were arrested by state authorities on sexual battery charges and are expected to be transferred into federal custody after their initial appearance in state court. Tal Alexander briefly appeared before a federal judge in Florida on Wednesday afternoon and is expected to make another appearance Friday. Prosecutors in Miami-Dade County said they were coordinating with federal officials in New York, which was probably the whole Miami-Brooklyn connection and probably the whole transfer of the women. There's going to be the reason why they're being taken down, even though these are people that you would normally consider to have, again, they are rich Israelis in Miami who do real estate.
Yeah.
They basically have diplomatic immunity for all intents and purposes. But if there is one thing that Trump, and especially the Trump side of right populism, has been very adamant about, it is sex trafficking. This is a huge issue for them, and these guys are not going to be protected. This is something where they may very well end up getting life in prison. And so as a result,
they won't survive that. These boys,
three brothers face 15 years to life in prison if
they'll never make that.
Charges. Remember, here's the one thing we can always say and often say about the FBI. When they nail your ass, you're pretty much done. You're not getting out of it because they don't waste their resources on these types of cases unless they have the goods. This is what they do. 95 or 96% conviction rate. Although they are Israeli, so who knows? They may fall into that 4 or 5 percentile. The prosecutors allege the Alexander brothers worked together and with other men, of course, to repeatedly and violently drug, sexually assault, and rape dozens of victims in New York, Miami, and elsewhere. The newly unsealed federal indictment charges the brothers for a scheme from 2011 through 2021. You can imagine there are hundreds of victims here, at least. But prosecutors say the sexual violence against dozens of women spans more than 20 years, dating as far back as to when the men were in high school. You know what? I don't need to read this any further, and I'll tell you why.
So that being the case, then that has to go beyond just them. Now you're talking that has to involve older people that were involved. You don't just all of a sudden in high school that's not how that works.
Well, it's not just older people, but this is also the lesson that we are learning today that I think a lot of people are really missing, and why Israel is acting the way that it's acting with such impunity is because of acts like this. How do you know that these guys weren't caught back in 2011, 2013, 2015?
We don't.
And nothing happened to them. So they decided, we really are bulletproof, so let's just keep going. Why? Because money and power allows things to get swept up under the rug. That's why I always got upset when people were targeting Trump. I'm like, you think Trump's the problem? It's the system that's the problem. People of this level of prominence are essentially untouchable. These jackoffs, these Israeli scumsuckers that live in a very secluded, affluent part of the country where only their kind is welcomed. You want to talk about real racism?
Oh, yes.
I've been in these areas. Let me assure you, if you're not one of them, you're not welcome.
No,
they will never have you there. You are not. The restaurants are that way. The police department is that way. This is extremely affluent and isolated. And so, like I said, it was as if they could do no wrong, and they were treated as if they could do no wrong.
So what happened that's different? We don't know.
And we're not going to know for a while.
No, we won't know for a while. All right, what are we going to next? I don't need to do those stupid kids from Pod Save America again. Please don't make me do that again.
Oh, you don't want to talk
about... We could do the Josh Shapiro thing.
Well, Jen, you did have a bootlicker of the week, didn't you?
I do, guys. Well, let's just be very real. If you're new here, please hit the like button. We are Jen and Peter from Generational Change, but we do have something interesting to talk about. But you could go ahead and put it up. It's a process. So we have ourselves a bootlicker. We have ourselves a bootlicker, people. I'm just saying, we have ourselves a bootlicker. So,
well, and if you can grab that wonderful tweet from Mr. Shapiro regarding
I
Mr.
see there's like a clip of him down there. Oh, that's the clip of him signing.
That's the clip, but we need the tweet from Mr. Mangione about Mr. Mangione that Governor Shapiro decided about.
Right. So Governor Josh Shapiro of the great state of Pennsylvania, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Your boots, sir.
He's quite the bootlicker. So this guy decides to be, and granted, yes, Mangione was apprehended in Pennsylvania, which is why it makes it relevant for the governor of Pennsylvania to be obviously having a statement. I get it. But the way that he is phrasing that violence is not the answer, and then this is the same man that not only is a complete Zio-Nazi, but was literally signing bombs that are going to be dropped. And I believe they were the ones going to Ukraine that were going to be like dropped on arguably Russian children. So he was okay with that. So this is from Governor Josh Shapiro.
Oh, you didn't have it there yet, Colin? Yeah. All right. No, this was, he put this statement out there a few days ago. But I think it's very important because we'll play the clip and Colin.
Yeah. So this is the governor that is basically telling us that the answer is not violence.
Hear me on this. He
here it
is no hero. The real hero in this story.
This audio's bad, so we're not going to play it. If you want to re-up that, Colin.
But that's the better thing where he's talking about like just sitting there with his like clutching his pearls about how this is, just so horrible and not the way that we solve our problems.
Is this it, Colin? Is it ready? No.
I can't find what you're talking like. It's
no, I think it was just he said it, Peter. I think he just said it.
Yeah, he may have said it, and then it was a tweet that was. I'll see if I can find it. All right, give me one second.
That's fine, but just
I was looking on his tweet.
Yeah,
but let's play. Where's the clip of him? Do we have the clip of him where he's gleefully signing all the bombs that are going to be sent over to Ukraine?
No, actually, this is.
Is this it? What you have there?
No, this is perfect because he actually was picked up on commentary by Fox News of all places, but this is what he had to say. Governor Shapiro comments on the arrest of Luigi Mangione. Some attention in this case, especially online, has been deeply disturbing as some have looked to celebrate instead of condemning this killer. In America, we do not kill people in cold blood. To resolve policy differences or express viewpoint.
Really?
We got a good one.
First of all, you bootlicking piece of shit. Lack of health care and people dying is not a policy disagreement, first of all. But the fact that he says that's so in America, we don't do that. Really? We don't solve problems with violence in America? I think that's all we do. That's what we're known for. That's our bag, dude. That's what we do. That's our jam. So how dare him do that? And yes, and we don't have it, and that's fine. But there is video footage of that same piece of shit, Governor Shapiro, literally being one of those people like others have, where they're signing the bombs that are being sent to go kill people.
Oh, you mean like this?
Playing in the background with his tweet. In America, we don't use violence to solve policy disputes. No, you're right, Josh. We don't. We use violence to kill innocent civilians that are in places far away. That's exactly what we use violence for. What a piece of shit. Good luck to him running for president, you Zio-Nazi.
Well, there it is. As he says, we must do our part in the fight for freedom from the workers in Scranton, PA, who make Pennsylvania the arsenal of democracy, to the brave Ukrainian soldiers protecting their country. We stand with Ukraine in their just defense of their homeland in the face of Russian aggression.
So this is the man telling us condescendingly that in America, we don't use violence to settle policy disputes. Really?
No. Just sign those bombs, baby.
Where does he think those are going? Where does he think those are going?
To kill women and children, which they always do.
Of course.
But, he's a very proud man. And
Oh
Remember,
my God.
there's a way to go about killing. As long as it is considered acceptable by polite society, then you can do it. If you
I find
don't,
him embarrassing as a Jewish person. I do. It disgusts me to no end that it's Jewish people like him that are in the public eye that get or like Debbie or, any of these total like Zion Nazi, like warmongers that are basically representing the tribe and are horrible. It's like the worst of us. People like that are the worst of us. It's this, first of all of that is completely violates the tenets of Judaism. There's this thing that we call like, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. It's small things like that.
thou shalt not bear false witness.
Just all of it, like he's just such a piece of shit. So yeah. And again, policy differences is what
he does come off as a fairly meager, weak man in many ways. They're always the scariest. But he's going to have a hard enough time in his state because apparently his other Zionist
also horrible. Shrek is running apparently.
So apparently Mr. Fetterman himself has made it clear that he is already considering an exploratory committee to run for president in 2028. So there you go.
Good luck to you.
Let those two fight it out.
Douche.
Let those two fight it out. That'll be too pretty.
You know what? And maybe what happens is a Republican wins. So good luck to that.
In that state? Well, you never know. I mean,
I don't know because with how conservative Fetterman is like a neocon at this point.
Oh, absolutely. But he's also a very physically intimidating person. And unfortunately, that tends to go a long way. And he's got a lot of conservative support now for whatever reason.
Because of the Zion Nazi thing.
Absolutely.
So whoever are like the evangelists, the Christian Zionists.
Well, there you go. He's already come out in support of Pete Hegseth. So he's
Hegseth isn't going to. I don't think Hegseth's going to get confirmed, and I don't think Tulsi's going to get confirmed.
Which is unfortunate because I personally would like to see Tulsi confirmed. I have my reasons.
I know.
Not that I'm a supporter for her.
And I don't have a personal beef with her any more than I would with any other appointment that's going to be a Zionist pro, that appointment. But all of them are that. So it doesn't really matter. Yes, they have, Josie. They have totally stolen it. And it's horrible. And I will spend seemingly the rest of my life going through every day having to define that Judaism and Zionism are not the same thing.
Kat's right. I mean, this is all just wrestling in so many ways. It's why Trump and McMahon were so close. It's like they're one and the same. I mean, politics and wrestling, they really share a lot of similarities.
It's theater. It's political theater. It's theater. For sure it is.
They care more about one-upsmanship against each other than they do about healthcare. Like they really do. They don't want to talk about healthcare. That's going to piss off their donor base.
No, they don't want to talk about healthcare. So what do you want to do? What do you want to what's your next thing that you want to
final story that we're going to cover this evening, which I think is very important. I do have a mask for the occasion if necessary.
Okay. Okay.
So speaking of Jews who disappoint, Mark Zuckerberg is doing everything in his power to try to rub elbows as closely and tightly with the soon-to-be president of the United States. And so, Mr. Zuckerberg, Meta, has donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund. You know, the whole shebang with the taking the oath and...
Wait, hold on.
There it is.
So we could have a story time, guys. Let's read a chapter from the Oligarch Chronicles, Tales of Emasculated Men.
This is still one of the best graphics. This is still one of the best graphics you've ever put together.
I know you love this one in particular. So
I personally think Gates is the worst billionaire of them all, but who's counting?
I know, but you love Bezos with the cat, like Bezos with the beanie.
Bezos just looks like he should be wearing a beanie, and Zuckerberg definitely looks like he should be wearing the Corchester hat.
Anyway, guys, so we're going to have a chapter from the Oligarch Chronicles.
Yeah, the only hat that doesn't, I can't see Musk wearing a hat like that.
No, it was the only one, given the direction his head was facing, it was the only one that worked. Sometimes graphics are not my, I got to do what I got to do. But anyway, Tales of Emasculated Men Vying to Destroy the World. And here we go. Now go back to what you were saying. Here we go.
Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has donated $1 million to President-elect Donald Trump's inaugural fund. Spokesperson for the social media giant confirmed to CBS. The news was first reported by the Wall Street Journal. The move comes 2 weeks after Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg traveled to Mar-a-Lago and dined with President Trump. At the time, Trump advisor Stephen Miller, one of the worst in his circle, told Fox News that Zuckerberg has made clear that he wants to support the national renewal of America under Trump's leadership. No, he just wants to make sure that he's still. This is once we finish, I'll explain to you why Zuckerberg is doing this. Trump was removed from Facebook following the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol when it was determined that his post had potentially encouraged the violence that occurred that day. Yeah, some violence. The company restored his account in early 2023 with certain guardrails. In July, those restrictions were lifted by Meta. Trump has a combined 65 million followers on Facebook and Instagram. In August, Zuckerberg submitted a letter to Congress claiming that the Biden administration in 2021 repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. He called the government pressure wrong and said he would push back against any similar efforts in the future. Silicon Valley has been uneasy about the kind of the treatment it may get from a second Trump administration, and the donation may signal an attempt by Zuckerberg to thaw those tensions. Well, why, Jed? Why would Mark Zuckerberg be giving money of such substantial level to President Trump? Well, it's pretty obvious.
Because they're all the same and they're all in the same group and there's money to be made together.
The oligarchs, and one of the reasons that they are as successful as they are, is because they grease the wheels of those in power. They want those billion with a B, subsidies. And those subsidies could easily go away if Trump decides that he just doesn't want to play ball with them. And he has that power. He is obviously attached at the hip to Elon, but the rest of the billionaire players, specifically Gates, Zuckerberg, and Bezos, are very concerned that Trump may not be as generous with them as he's going to be with Musk. And he's obviously going to be very extremely generous.
So what you're saying is it's sort of like the oligarch pissing match Olympics.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's nice. So basically they're having like penis contests is what's going on.
However small and shriveled they may be, but yes.
They must be. Oh, there's some serious compensation happening.
There is overcompensation. Very, very much so.
Oh.
I look at the four, if you could pull them up one more time, because that's just such a great graphic.
I know you love this one. It's backed by popular demand. Okay.
I think Elon is a complete narcissist in every sense of the word. I think Bezos is a
very small man.
He's a sociopath.
So such a small little man. He's Lord Farquaad to me. He's Lord Farquaad.
Yeah. I think Zuckerberg is almost a version of Sheldon Adelson in his need for attention. If you know anything about the history of Facebook and how that came to be, truthfully, the only person on that panel that really came up with anything was Bezos. Bezos figured out a way to create an empire of a shipping business.
Yes, cheating.
Sure.
Cheating, completely cheating.
Yes.
He purposefully worked in the red. He purposefully worked at a loss to put people out of business and was able to get away with doing that because of the way our system subsidizes. That's
the only thing I will say that really significantly is the difference, and I know people are obviously very adamant about their feelings about Elon Musk. I appreciate the fact that Elon Musk is a public figure because at least you're going to be able to see what he's up to. Somebody like Bill Gates in particular does not like to be public. In fact, he likes to present himself as somebody who is doing good, I feel like referencing It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but he's a full-on pissed, I had to bleep myself, philanthropist, but he's not. Nobody in this country owns more farmland than him, which should scare people.
Well, his goal I believe, has always been to own the food supply of the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And he is a complete megalomaniac. I also think that there is a connection between him and Jeffrey Epstein. And I actually think that has something to do with why him and his wife split up when they did.
Yeah.
And I think he is pretty much the skeeviest person up there. And that says a lot. That says a lot. Yeah, Bill Gates. And not only does he own he is the largest individual landholder in this country. I believe that if you added up the acreage of what he owns, my understanding is it's like the size of like a state. And by state, I don't mean like a small state. I mean like a state like Oklahoma, Nebraska size state.
Oh, yeah.
He owns a lot of land. And he also, by the way, did that.
He owns hundreds of thousands of acres of land.
Oh, like he owns the size of a state. And
it's not just any, and keep in mind, guys, it's not just any land. It's hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland.
And he also has done the same thing in Africa. And it's very concerning. So this is somebody who I believe nefariously. He's the guy from the movie The Lorax that owns the air so that you have to pay him to breathe. Bezos is, he's just a very, very small little man. He's Lord Farquaad, who has to be put on fake legs to look remotely tall. But Gates is extremely scary. The idea of somebody owning, and also his connection with like GMOs and Monsanto and just trying to control the quality of the food we eat. He's horrifying.
Yeah, the difference between Elon, Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Gates is that Zuckerberg, Elon, and Bezos, you can tell that they are deeply insecure people, that they are always having to you could tell that they're
they're in a contest. They're ridiculous.
100%. But Gates is Dr. Evil. Like he is, you could say he's insecure. You could say all those things. He is extremely sure of himself. He knows exactly what his mission is. And he sees himself as a god. Like, in many ways. He does. He likes playing God. There's a reason why he is somebody who does everything in his power to never get talked about in the media.
I think that he is one of the reasons that somebody like Jeffrey Epstein never made it to trial.
The fact that
that's what I think.
If anybody wants to know just how sinister and evil somebody like Gates is, if you've never heard his statement regarding Jeffrey Epstein when he was once questioned about it, keep in mind, Gates has been to the island many a times. His attitude, or his response, I should say, was like, yeah, well, he kind of met his fate. It's unfortunate. He was basically telling you, yeah, I had him killed.
I don't know who's who, but I do know that would not be surprising. The idea that anybody who has been to that island more than one time is complicit. Even if I were willing to let one time where you didn't know until you saw it with your own eyes kind of thing. But once you've been there, you're complicit. And I don't think that there's nothing to be. Again, the reason he doesn't want to be in the public eye is because you get away with infinitely more stuff. Like, yeah, he to me is the most nefarious for sure.
To bring this whole conversation full circle, and we are extremely grateful for all of you that have been here this evening. And remember, if you haven't hit that like button, make sure that you do. Make sure that you are subscribed. Also, make sure that if you are considering supporting our small but mighty channel, we have 112 people in the chat. That's great. We got up to about 135. Also
it's exciting
great.
For us.
Get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty
I will
channel.
say this, if you have only $5 a month to give it to Status Quo. Yes. But if you can support, we're so appreciative. But the best thing really is subscribe, like, comment. All of those things really help us. But definitely, all the help is good.
Mark, thank you for the $5. Superb discussion between the three of you. Can't vote our way out of swamp of greed. No, you cannot. Voting matters, but it is not going to save you. You have to vote in conjunction with the movement. Working people must rise up en masse and jam the gears.
I agree.
Sajid?
By the way, I love that picture that you put up promoting the show, that picture of me and Matthew
Oh, you're
So
welcome.
cute.
I do some.
Yeah.
I do some good things every once in a
You
while.
do some good things. That's just like just a cute picture.
Sajid Nasir, thank you for the $4.99. What is your opinion of Medicare for all and what it would mean to the current system, regular Medicare with supplemental coverage or Medicare Advantage? None of that will exist. You'll have one single payer system.
You can't have separate tiers. Once you have separate tiers, you create this system that is a class system that is we have Cash App. I feel like we have Cash App. We do have Cash App. That's us. However, something that I have done for cases, if somebody wants to donate one time on Patreon, there are a few options. If you go onto Patreon and go into our storefront, there's actually a few options, and they do come with purchasing collage from me, but it's basically a way to make a one-time donation. So that is one way you can do it, is through Patreon, a one-time donation, and we are Cash App. But that's basically the options.
The one thing that I will say is, and yes, TM, then definitely go to Patreon and you can make a one-time contribution.
Yeah, just go into the store on Patreon and you buy a collage, and make sure that we have your address. And I will, they're all my handmade.
The one thing that I will say is that if YouTube is what you choose to do, I would definitely recommend doing Patreon first for this reason. Because at Patreon, you don't have to worry about YouTube taking a chunk of the money.
They take some. Patreon takes some, but it's not the same, and it's not like Big Daddy and Big Brother censorship kind of thing.
See, we got her. We thank you, TM.
Hey, thank you, TM.
And of course, this is, our mission, as we said, which is transforming politics into service. We try our very best to be as thought-provoking and as useful as anybody. And thank you so much, Tony. Tony, one of our regulars. Happy to have you here.
Love it.
And
crocodile tears and alligator.
Well, keep in mind, TM, it's not that YouTube are the greedy bastards. It's Google. Google owns YouTube. That's
right. It's Google. It's
everything
Google.
Goes to the top.
Same difference, though.
Much like when I have, people, I'm sure are not too thrilled when I say that you could actually point to a direction where the 2020 election was rigged against Donald Trump. How was it rigged? It was rigged because the Google algorithm decided that it was going to basically rig the coverage in certain places, in certain stories.
Yeah.
Positive and negative, positive to Biden, negative to Trump. And again, these are layers that most people never get to.
Thank you
so much, Merlin. Happy to have you.
Evans, thank you. Welcome.
Appreciate it.
Welcome. We have actually, for people, if you are new here, we've been around for over 4 years, and we have more than 4 years of content on our channel. And a lot of our content, because we're not like really news, like Jordan is much more breaking news and stuff, but a lot of our content is long form, very informative interviews with experts and authors and all sorts of people. So we have all sorts of content back in our channel that people can check out that's just, I'm very proud of it. Like, I'm very proud of our library of content. We have amazing guests. We have really good conversations. We have a decent impersonator.
Well, I just want to come on here and let Ginger know that this is not an impersonation. This is actually the Senator of Vermont letting you know that not only should you support status quo, but you should also be supporting generational change. As you can see, the name of the show right up there, right above Jen.
Other side.
Oh, right above your head, Jen.
No, you're pointing the wrong way. You're pointing the wrong way.
No, that way?
Yes.
Listen, I get confused. I'm an old man. Even us old men that are sharp and practice Duolingo and Luminosity.
It's here.
Yeah, there it is.
It's right here.
So just make sure that you get over there and you support this small but mighty channel. All the help in the world makes all the difference. Good, independent, grassroots support is how we make a difference.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here, and I'm also here to thank you all for supporting this wonderful channel. Thank you so much.
Not a lot of talking for one day.
I know. I feel like it's been a marathon, but guys, if you're
TM, you haven't been around for a while. We've been talking about this.
Yes,
we know
it's gonna
that's
happen.
why this guy moved. Yeah.
It's going to happen.
That's why
it's
he moved.
gross.
That's why he carpetbagged. And that's why it's going to be interesting dem on dem violence, because we know that Dana Nessel, your attorney general, is
Dem on dem
1,000% running for governor of Michigan.
No, he does live there now. That's the thing. Oh, wanker tanker. He does. He moved there for this very reason.
Mm-hmm. That's why.
Free Palestine.
Couldn't win statewide office. Could you imagine, Jen, could you even imagine that slimy bastard is going to run for governor, wins the seat, and then immediately turns around and runs for president again? He would.
Well, but he won't. I don't think he has a snowball's chance in hell of winning a statewide seat. Guys, and I've said this before, in order to be the mayor of South Bend, which, by the way, he did not do well there. He did not do well by those people. He was horrible. He was friggin' horrible. He was all about gentrification and screwing over people that really needed low-income housing anyway. So he was horrible. But that position is won by very few people. I've said it before. For Pete Buttigieg to become mayor of South Bend, he required less votes than we needed in order to get where we got in our congressional race. Like, it's so few people that put him there. And as Secretary of Transportation, this is the same man that essentially told babies and their parents to let them drink water when we were having a formula shortage because of supply chain issues. This is not somebody who can win a statewide race.
I just feel bad for Michigan because you guys actually put a spook in the U.S. Senate, which is unbelievable. But what are you going to do? She was a congresswoman.
I don't know, but good luck to Buttigieg. I honestly just don't see it.
You actually put a member of the CIA in the U.S. Senate. So,
well, why not? We've had the head of the CIA be president.
Ooh, this is interesting. So the mayor of Detroit planning on running as an independent for governor.
I don't know anything about that mayor, but I'll have to consult with friend Jordan Sheraton, who I'm sure knows plenty about that mayor.
Is he friendly with the people of Dearborn?
I don't know, but I would think that if anybody knows anything about the local politicians there, it's Jordan.
If anybody does know, it's Jordan Sheraton. With that said, remember to smash that like button.
You read Jordan's book?
Remember to read Jordan's book, which I have. Excellent. A tremendous book. Really great book.
I didn't read it. I had it read to me, but it was really good.
Yes. And so make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you click the bell. Jen, would you like to know who our special guest is on Monday coming up? Or do you know already? Did I tell you?
You told me, but tell everybody who we're having on Gen Change on Monday.
So on Monday, on our regularly scheduled time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will have Rothbone as our special guest. Now, if you guys don't know who Rothbone is, go and see his video clips, particularly the one about the Palestinian people deserve human rights.
Oh, that one's great. All right, and is he? I know him from Instagram, but is that like where he primarily is, or is he somewhere else that other people?
TikTok as well.
Okay. Yeah, he's great. He's the guy, for people you don't know. For the longest time, I thought it was Zach Galifianakis, and it isn't. Oh, the wife is Arab American.
That'll be interesting. Good.
Well,
as far as I'm concerned, better than Dana Nessel.
His wife is Indian. I mean, that seems to work.
Better than Dana Nessel. Better than Pete Buttigieg. But like I said, let him fight. Let him fight.
I think with somebody like Buttigieg and her going at it, like with that dem on dem violence, that is a good opportunity for somebody else, especially given where they are right now.
Yeah. No, listen, people are looking for a way out of the two-party duopoly. Yeah. Rothbone has some really good takes. So I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And then also, Jen, you remember Janine Yanis, who was a guest from DC?
I'm trying to remember.
Janin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So almost very, very likely she and potentially a couple of others are going to be a guest on Thursday, 9 p.m. next week, talking about what's going on in Syria.
Oh, good. Yeah, we need people that know Syria. Now, and I will say this, the people that we have met, the Syrian people that we know here, are definitely more affluent, of the more affluent class of people
and usually that does represent a lot of the people that are able to come here because you have to have some means. And so I really, because I contemplated calling some of our Syrian friends, but it occurs to me that they could sort of be the wealthy white version of how we call like the Venezuelans here, who are supportive of regime change, but that doesn't necessarily reflect all the people that are there. So that was sort of I'm not mentioning names, but you know what I mean? Like, so I wasn't sure if that would be the best approach.
Well, I may also go live on Sunday evening, depending on what I have going on. But I do a solo show every once in a while called Pontificating with Pete. That's where certain topics are talked about that Jen doesn't necessarily want to dabble.
There are things that he wants to talk about that I don't want to waste my mental energy on. So it's generally like if you watch a Pontificating with Pete, it's like one of those things where he'll do a whole rant on something that I would just be like, who cares?
Yeah. Well, that's the variety of not having two hosts that do the exact same thing or agree on every single thing. But
we're still working on Mo's show because she really likes that.
I think that would be excellent. Having our friend Mona Lisa Weber host an hour-long weekly show would be great too.
The Mo show.
One thing that we can agree on is the level of bullshit that is going to continue to get thrown in our direction. Things like this is the real working class here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to read it. I don't need to know who said it.
So that's why they're, of course, focusing on the, Luigi's family wealth and stuff. That's what they're doing. That's the only possible angle they could play, is that Brian Thompson comes from a working class family and Luigi doesn't. That's it. That's the angle they can play. Okay, so you come from a working class family and then you turn around and be a complete class traitor piece of shit and condemn thousands and thousands of people to death while you profit.
They're just
that's worse than the kid who has money fighting on behalf of.
They're just assuming that you're not going to read the headline. That only read the headline and nothing.
Only read the headline. Right.
Indeed.
Right. Well, no, it does sound like Brian Thompson comes from a working class. I think it said something about his mom was a hairdresser or whatever. So it's like, I get that. That's very touching. That's very sweet. But then, you know what? Brian grew up to be a mass murderer.
He sure did.
So that's what happens.
And hopefully, if there is any justice in this world, we are on the trajectory, hopefully,
who are we getting?
On wood, towards a single-payer universal health care system.
And when are we getting Butch Ware back on?
I'm still working on it, and I will keep working on it.
I'm
going to have to message him directly instead, because I'm not getting anywhere with this person. So we'll see.
That's how it
happens.
happens.
Butch Ware will be a guest on our show as well very soon. So smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Monday or Monday. Thanks.
Bye, guys.